Painting 2. Turn back. The second meeting was shorter than the first. The speaker had already done their work, and done it well, as everyone who attended had their ears eagerly tuned to what the speaker had to say this time. I was as eager as the rest of them to hear what glories awaited with these new innovations and investments to ease. And after my conversation with Morgaith last time, I was determined to listen and hear, and most importantly, understand what the speaker had to say. It started with the same promises, building on their previous success. Easier work, better health, more time freed up for other things. It snagged then. The speaker continued talking, but they never said what other things they meant. It's fine, I told myself. How can they encompass and list every person's hobbies? There are 1,000 other things people can do with their time. But Morgaith's skepticism prickled along my skin as the speaker pressed on about pushing the bounds of what was possible. Instead of 3 pairs of shoes, we choose from 30, 300. Instead of summer's pickles, we could have fresh fruit in winter. On and on the speaker spoke, listing choice and abundance in steady litany, while all I could think was, where will all those shoes come from? If we had more time for other things, who would be left to make shoes? Or were we all soon to be expected to make shoes in our newly free time? Who needs 300 shoes? I thought. You can only wear 1 pair at a time. I glanced around the hall. Eager faces watched the speaker with unerring rapture, and for the first time, I sensed what Morgaith had already perceived. The promises the speaker made were glorious, but their reality couldn't be made possible without some kind of trade-off, of which the speaker remained resolutely silent. With our energies thus focused on the world around us and what it can offer, we will be able to advance ourselves for the betterment of all, the speaker said. But this will only be possible. They paused before repeating. This will only be possible if we devote ourselves wholly and unequivocally to this task. And what better task can we devote ourselves to? Raucous applause erupted. People leapt to their feet, pledging themselves to the speaker's service, to the service of the betterment of all. I remained in my seat. Around the hall, only 2 other people sat. Morgaith and an elderly man with paint in his beard. As the clamor slowly abated, Morgaith stood and raised her voice, calling for the speaker's attention. Her words were muffled among the crowd, but those nearest to her turned, and I saw the speaker's eyes dart to her. Before Morgaith could utter another word, the speaker dismissed the guild. I didn't need to be close to see the fury in her eyes. Perhaps, in the end, it was the fury that drove her. Afterwards, as Morgaith silently seethed, the man with paint in his beard sought us out on the steps. The 2 of you noticed, then, he said in a quivering voice. Morgaith smiled with bitter amusement. It's impossible not to hear if you know how to listen. The man frowned. Listening and hearing are not the matter of it. You heard and listened to the same thing as the rest of them. So don't play games in congratulating yourself for sharper ears if you have duller brains. I liked the man immediately. There were few who chose to compete with Morgaith's riddling games. After the meeting, I feared there would be fewer still. I heard the silence in the speaker's words the last time, Morgaith said coldly. The first test, I suppose, for how easily the guild will bend to work on one project and forget the rest. The betterment of all, the man said. An easy line, and one I think even you 2, young as you are, must agree with. It's hard to disagree with its premise, I said carefully. But if you think we need persuading to it, then why didn't you applaud? Bah! Why should I applaud a speaker whose goal of betterment, a better life, denigrates the life I've lived? Everyone could have an easier life. But are you going to make everyone immortal to take away the hardship of grief? Of every time I failed at what I tried? Of course, there are parts of my life I could have wished were easier. So would everyone wish. But then you would rid the triumph of when you succeed. Those moments of life made sweet. It took me 20 years before I thought I could paint, and another 20 before I thought I had any hint of actual skill. Time makes skill. How does the speaker plan to free up time for those who need it to hone their skills? They aren't. The force of Morgaith's voice rang over the steps. The man looked at her, and I realized he'd only chanced upon the tip of what the speaker's silence held. When Morgaith spoke again, horror crept over his weathered face. The speaker cares only for the skills that will grant them the particular progress and betterment they want. The only sort they're speaking of, so they can say they've delivered it. What happens to the rest? What happens to those of us who can't make trees fruit in winter, or who can't make 300 shoes in half the time it takes to make 30? No one can make that many shoes so quickly, I interrupted. Morgaith glowered. Then the speaker will innovate until they find a machine that can. A machine, the man murmured. If we want to keep our skills, Morgaith said, then we no longer have free time. How do you value your work when your work becomes deemed worthless? Looking back, I could have done with some of that fury. As the crowd howled their approval, all I heard was the silence to come.